de débat.
Resuming debate.
The honourable member from Edmonton, Manning.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. With your permission, before I begin, I would like to welcome two of my constituents visiting from Edmonton.
No.
They just arrived there, if that's okay. Madam Speaker, before I begin, I would like to say that I will be splitting my time today with the honourable member from Perth, Wellington. The bill we are discussing today is an enactment to amend the Income Tax Act, reducing the second personal income tax rate from 22% to 20.5%, and introducing a new personal marginal tax rate of 33% for taxable income in excess of $200,000. Additionally, it amends the Act to reduce the annual contribution for tax-free saving accounts from $10,000 to its previous level with indexation of $5,500. The question that must be asked is, why make these changes? Are they for the good of the country, or are they political posturing? Underlying this legislation are opinions that investment in the middle class is the best way to generate income growth, economic growth and development, and that TFSAs disproportionately benefit wealthier Canadians. Madam Speaker, quite simply, that is wrong. These income tax changes will not be revenue neutral, as the member opposite claimed when the change was an election promise. These changes will plunge the country further into deficit spending. As a father, I have worked hard to teach my children about the importance of living within our means, to be careful with their money. It may be a cliche, but I have told them that money does not grow on trees. By implementing these changes, we will be sending my sons the opposite message. We will be saying that being fiscally responsible does not matter. Tax breaks for the middle class are not, in themselves, sufficient to stimulate the economy. You can't spend your way to growth as you can't tax your way to prosperity. What is needed is an economic plan, not a politically motivated and hastily conceived piece of legislation. These changes, by increasing government debt, will negatively impact all Canadians. This bill lacks concrete, targeted plans to stimulate economic innovation. In effect, it ignores the pressing need to develop these initiatives. Madam Speaker, the Parliamentary Budget Officer is quite clear that these changes are not a revenue-neutral election promise, but a drain on the public purse. According to PBO research, the bill's proposed income tax bracket changes will lower government revenues by $8.9 billion over 6 years. This may not be important to those who believe that the budget will balance itself, but for those of us who live in the real world, numbers matter. Based on Finance Canada's estimates, the new Liberal tax plan amounts to an average an extra $6.3 a week for those individuals who qualify. We know this small tax break is not enough to grow our economy, nor does throwing money at the middle class stimulate growth and innovation. Perhaps this government should be less worried about the income tax rate and focus on creating jobs, so more people will be paying in. This new Liberal tax plan raises taxes on higher income earners, those who traditionally create jobs and grow our overall economy. By increasing taxes on these job creators, we are discouraging success and punish those who have done well for themselves. The lack of transparency surrounding the cost of these changes is cause for serious concern. Canadians have the right to know how the taxation system impacts them and the country. This is not just about the present, it's about the future of Canada. The PBO's financial calculation drew from behavioral considerations of how people at different income levels might respond to the tax changes, including taking steps toward lowering tax payments. Other reports have pointed to a high likelihood of brain drain for professionals in the upper tax bracket, people choosing to leave Canada for employment elsewhere rather than pay high taxes. Apparently, this government could not anticipate that. Facing a tax hike, some people will work to find ways to reduce their taxes. That is simple human nature. In popular debate, the media, and in academic research, a brain drain out of Canada is cited as a very real possibility, a logical outcome to these changes. Most doctors, lawyers, and other skilled professionals are found in the upper tax bracket, and their departure could be very dangerous for Canada. Tax avoidance through reporting less income, using tax planning techniques to reduce the tax burden, working fewer hours, or even not seeking job promotions are very real possibilities. Progressive income taxes like this reduce the return of education, since high incomes are associated with high levels of education. Such taxes reduce the incentive to build human capital. The consensus among experts is that taxes on both corporate and personal income are particularly harmful to economic growth, as economic growth ultimately comes from production, innovation, and risk-taking. Tax-free saving accounts are an effective saving tools for all Canadians. They can be used to reduce economic vulnerability and dependence upon government. Limiting their usage will negatively impact Canadians across the socioeconomic spectrum. It is not only the rich who open TFSAs, but Canadians of all ages and all walks of life. Moreover, limiting potential for TFSA contributions would result in greater vulnerability and dependence of Canadians. TFSAs are used widely by many Canadians, but thus these policies affect an extremely wide variety of citizens. According to the parliamentary budget officers, Canadians have the largest personal debt of any G7 country. I find it strange, Madam Speaker, that any Canadian government will introduce measures that will discourage savings. Yet, in reducing the tax-free saving accounts, limits the government has done just that, instead of encouraging thriftiness and living within one's means. And yes, saving for a rainy day. This government wants to spend its way out of debt. 2 and 2 does not add up to 5, and wishing it was so doesn't make it so. For many years, I was a businessman, owning and operating a number of small businesses. I can assure you, Madam Speaker, that a business with spending that consistently exceeds revenue does not stay open very long. As custodians of the taxpayers' hard-earned funds, it is our responsibility to act responsibly, not recklessly, while the nation's finance. These new measures will affect all taxpayers. As governments move deeper and deeper into deficit and the national debt grows increasingly larger, someone at some point will be called upon to foot the bill. When our children and grandchildren are struggling to maintain essential services and climb under a mountain of government debt, they will be asking why we fail to act in a responsible fashion. What we will tell them that we truly believe budgets could balance themselves. Madam Speaker, for the good of Canada, this bill needs to be defeated. Thank you.
Questions and comments, questions et commentaires. L'honorable secrétaire.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when the Conservative government under Mr. Mulroney lost in 1993, they left $1 billion in deficits. When Paul Martin was defeated, we left them a $13 billion surplus. 9 years later, they're still creating a mess. We have deficits that we will have to solve. So my question is, do we always have to clean up what you're doing?
After you leave all the time.
I hope the member wasn't referring to me, that you were trying to clean up my mess. So I would again remind the member to address the questions to the chair. The honourable member from Edmonton Manning, please.
Madam Speaker, the members opposite sounds like they're the gods of savings and leaving money for others, while we know their history very well. And they know, too, they keep referring to the past, they keep referring to what our governments have done, and they never were able to tell us in 100 days what is their concrete plan and what they are trying to do. So we would like to hear from them what is their plan in dollars and cents. And thank you.
Questions and comments, questions et commentaires. The honourable member for Timmins James Bay.
Madam Speaker, I always find it fascinating that Conservatives always speak on behalf of the grandchildren. You know, the debt we're going to leave to our grandchildren, how we have to stand up and fight for our grandchildren. This is a government that has ridiculed the Canada Pension Plan day after day in this House. Even today, they're telling us that the TFSAs are better than the Canada Pension Plan. They're telling their grandchildren, well, I guess if they make a lot of money, hey, not to worry. But if you're a hard-working Canadian without a defined pension plan, you're on your own. This has been the operating culture to undermine and attack pension systems in our country while we have an ongoing pension crisis. And I don't know what world my colleague lives in, but wherever I go, I'm meeting people in their 50s who are telling me, I don't have enough money to retire. The Canada Pension Plan is not sufficient. I don't have the company pension that existed before. How am I going to get through? And so to hide behind his grandchildren, come on. When was the last time the Tories ever looked to anything for the future?
The honourable member from Edmonton Manning.
Well, thanks for the honourable member for his comment about grandchildren, which should be the worries of every one of us. And by the way, as a proud Conservatives, we do spend based on what we make. We make money, then we can spend money. We don't spend out of the pocket of the future generations. That's why our grandchildren are matters to us.
Questions and comments, questions et commentaires. The honourable member from Caribou Prince George.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Again, I just more of a comment for our honourable colleagues across the way. I just want to again bring note to the document that we're referring to, which as of about an hour ago was still on the Department of Finance website. So one of their documents, the Fiscal Monitor, a publication, Department of Finance, as of November 2015. This government, our government, the Conservative Party, left Canada with a $1 billion surplus. So the question I have, I guess, is it misinformation? Is it confusion within the Ministry of Finance? Or did the Minister of Finance just misread his cue cards from the PMO?
Honourable member from Edmonton Manning.
Well, obviously, I repeat what my honourable colleague has said. Basically, we left a surplus. We operate with a surplus. We had the best economic performance. No one can deny that. And in fact, a government that never, ever was able to bring facts to the table have no right to say anything or to even criticize our position in the past government that we had.
Questions and comments, questions et commentaires. The honourable member from Canada, Carleton.
Thank you, Madam. We have to correct the record. We have to. We have to challenge it. We can't let erroneous statements stand.
Exactly.
We do not measure, Madam President, we do not, Speaker, we do not measure deficits or surpluses in parts of a year. We don't measure, we can measure deficit months if you want. Let's do that. I'll go back and I'll look over the last 9 years and I'll discover how many deficit months there are. $150 billion of debt for our grandchildren. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
A member from Edmonton Manning has just a few seconds to answer there.
Well, thank you again. Basically, the honourable member on the other side wants to go back 9 years to look into the facts and the figures. There's this figure here on their website that telling everybody, telling Canadians and the world that we've saved. We left them with $1 billion. So please, can you assure that news to us and make sure that you admit it? Thank you.
Once again.